Well, welcome back everyone, it's Nicola Cairncross here, and today I want to talk to you about price versus value. This is a concept I came across when I first watched Mike Maloney's Wealth Cycles video, and I had to watch this about 3 times to actually get the concept, because it's all about not just what something costs, but what something's worth. And that's always relative. So it's relative to other, in the case of assets, for example, they're relative to other assets. In the case of education, it's whether it's worth anything to you because it will help you learn something that will help you make more money, for example. It's a concept that really you need to become aware of, because things are going up and you need to be making choices about what things are worth to you versus what they actually cost. Another example is that I love to eat fresh fish. I cook tom yum soup with it. I cook fish risotto all the time, and fish is getting more and more expensive. But while I could buy other things that are cheaper, they would not be worth as much to me because I want to know exactly what's going into my food. So I have to buy the raw ingredients to cook things myself. So it's not about what fish and prawns particularly, it's not about what they cost, it's about their value to me in that I know what they are, and I can put them into recipes knowing that nothing else has gone into them. Whereas I could probably get, for about the same price I'm paying for a small packet of prawns, I could probably get about 8 frozen cod fillets with breadcrumbs around them, but I don't know what's gone into that. So that's not worth very much to me. Coming back to money for a minute, one of the most interesting things is Bitcoin, because I got into Bitcoin when it was around just coming up for $17,000 per Bitcoin. And remember, of course, that you don't have to buy a whole one. You can buy bits of Bitcoin. But the price has gone up and down ever since. You know, I've bought twice at $3,000, so it's dipped as low as that in the recent past. And then it goes up again. It went up to $20,000 and then it went up to $60,000 and just beyond. And it went down again because we're right in the middle of lockdown. All the sort of strange things are happening, and there's lots of shenanigans and price fixing, let's call it, with things like silver, gold and Bitcoin. But at some point, the price will break out of that again, and it will go up again to $64,000 per Bitcoin and beyond. But I want to talk to you not about the price of Bitcoin, which is not what you should be focusing on. The thing about Bitcoin is it's uncensorable and it's unstoppable. So it's run on lots of different nodes all around the world. So if, for example, China bans Bitcoin and all the Chinese miners have to move somewhere else, then the rest of the world miners take up the slack. So it's got lots of different supporters, if you like, that are doing the mining of the Bitcoin, and no one government can stop it. So that's the value of Bitcoin rather than the actual price, which is not that important. The best thing to do with Bitcoin is to buy a bit of Bitcoin every single month, or even every single week if you can, because then it won't matter. The price fluctuations will even out. It's called dollar cost averaging. And the final thing about Bitcoin is when the Ukraine was invaded by Putin, a lot of people that we know in the internet world had to leave very quickly because lots of expats were living there cheaply and lots of coders live there. The Eastern Europeans are brilliant at coding, and a lot of people had to get out very quickly. Now, if they'd got out with gold and silver tucked about their person, they wouldn't have kept it for very long because lots of people were being searched at the border before they left. Whereas all the Bitcoin owners were able to just pick up their little cold storage wallets and pop them in a pocket, and off they go. All their wealth moved from where they were in Ukraine, and it went with them to wherever they went in the world after that. So that's the value of Bitcoin rather than the price of Bitcoin. It's the fact that it's uncensorable. If you learn your 12-word key off by heart, you don't even need to take the hard wallet with you. If the hard wallet gets seized or lost or whatever, then you can just literally start a new hard wallet with your 12-word key. So if you can manage to memorize 12 words, and even I could manage that probably, you get to take your wealth with you, which is invaluable. So that's an interesting thought, isn't it? Oh, and just finally on Bitcoin, I just looked up what the price of Bitcoin has actually done, because everyone goes, oh, Bitcoin's gone down now, hasn't it? Well, no, actually over the last 5 years, Bitcoin's up 66%, even taking into account the really big highs and the really big lows. And over the last 3 years, it's up 185%. And over all time, it's up 24 million%. So there you go. Don't tell me Bitcoin's gone down in price, because it has, but it hasn't gone down in value. Right, let's talk property. Property used to double in value every 7 to 10 years. Who knows what property is going to do, especially if the globalists get their way. But interestingly, the property market has been fluctuating recently. It's been going up to a very big high, and it's a bubble again. That's just starting to roll over now. So what will property be worth in the future? It'll be worth what you can afford, and it'll be worth what property is worth to you. So if you're looking to buy something, I would hang on for a little while if I were you, because the price of property will be going down, but the value of property won't be, because people need homes, and that's the value of property. The other thing is, if you compare one rental flat against another rental flat, then it isn't just the price you've got to take into account, it's the value of that property. So I was offered the opportunity to rent something further down the beach in Shoreham here, which was cheaper than the place I actually chose. But because it was north facing and quite dark in a lot of the rooms, I just knew that my mental health would suffer there. So as it makes me depressed if I'm in a place that doesn't get sun in the afternoon and evening. So now I'm paying a little bit more to live in a place that has got a fantastic view of the river. It's like my picture window here is like a picture of the river, and it just makes me feel happy every morning. So what price happiness every morning when you pull your blind up and you don't know what you're going to see? That's got a value way and above the little bit extra rent I'm paying. Let's talk about gold and silver for a minute, because obviously people think that the price of gold and silver doesn't rise, but what are you comparing it to? In the olden days, in the Roman times, you could buy a good toga with one piece of gold, an ounce of gold, which is currently worth about £1,600 at the moment. And you can take £1,600 and buy yourself a very nicely made suit. It might not be fully bespoke, because I imagine they've gone up a lot by then, because when my husband got his suit made, it was about 1,600 quid. So I imagine to get one at Savile Row, I can't remember which designer it was now, but yeah, it was Savile Row, definitely. It was about £1,600, so there you go. So the value of what you can buy with an ounce of silver hasn't changed, but the price of silver against the dollar, which is the one that most people quote, has changed. Now, I looked it up against the pound because that's what I like to do, because if I were to possess some gold and silver and then I wanted to go and sell it, that's what I'd be selling it in, pounds, not dollars. So why do people persist in looking at the price of gold and silver against the dollar? Look at it against the pound or your local currency, because that's what you'd be selling it into. And looking at what gold and silver has done for the last 5 years, because that's the measure I'm using on this exercise, gold's actually gone up 56% against the pound over the last 5 years, and silver's gone up 44%. So if you work that out, even if you roughly divide it by 5, you're looking at 10% per annum, aren't you? Growth against the pound. Actually, what it means is not that gold and silver is going up, and not that property's going up, and not that Bitcoin's going up. It means that the currencies are sinking against these assets. And that's the shift you have to make in your head. What this asset is valued at in terms of what it can purchase for you, rather than what it's worth against a sinking currency. And of course, we've got to think, taking that thought a little bit further, we've got to think, what are gold, silver and Bitcoin going to be worth in terms of value when the currency goes to zero, which it will, because that's what the Great Reset's all about. The globalists now have got too much debt to be able to service that debt without constantly printing more and more money to pay that debt off. In fact, they're not paying it off, they're just paying the interest on it. And they have to keep printing to pay the interest, let alone any of the capital sum borrowed. They've borrowed more in the last 2 to 3 years than they have over the whole time. This fiat currency. This one hasn't been around for long. And we're going to see a new one, the CBDCs, if they have their way, or a gold-backed currency if you're in a country like Brazil or Russia or India. So what will gold, silver and Bitcoin be worth then in terms of value rather than price? Let's talk about food right now. Food inflation is running at about 50% plus. I mean, unbelievable. When I buy fish now, the label covers the whole area. It used to have fish underneath it, where there is no fish now. So they're using the same size packaging, but the fish only goes halfway and the label covers the other half. I bought some mushrooms yesterday. Used to get about 8 to 10 mushrooms, chestnut mushrooms in a packet. And I opened the packet up and there were 4 big mushrooms sat in the corner of each of the packet, sat in the corners of the packet. And the label in the middle was stretched over cellophane, which was stretched over the whole thing. And there were no mushrooms in the middle. So that's just unreal, isn't it? I mean, the hidden inflation, you start noticing the weights are going down, the portion sizes are going down, they're charging more for things. So, you know, for example, my mushrooms are more expensive. They're sort of £2 where they used to be £1.60. And there's half the amount of mushrooms in there. Look, I'm squeaking, I'm so outraged. Let's talk about the value in learning versus the cost of learning. Well, if you don't keep learning in business, you're like a shark. You're going to die because you have to keep moving to keep surviving. And recently I invested in 2 training courses. Well, recently, late last year, I invested in 2 training courses. One was much more expensive than the other, and I thought it was going to be the one that was going to be the most helpful. As it turns out, it doesn't play to my strengths. So even though it costs more, it's got less value for me because I'm not actually learning anything from it that I'm going to be able to put into action. Whereas the other course was about a quarter of the investment in terms of currency, but it's taught me so much that I've actually made my money back already. So that's what you need to be thinking about in business. Rather than thinking about cost, think about investment and how quickly can I recoup that investment. Oh, by the way, I've just put up a video of a discussion I had with my mentor, Greg, which I'm hoping is going to become a regular thing. And we talk quite a bit in that about how quickly you need to recoup any investment you make in a business before you can actually say that your business is making money. So check that one out. And finally, with Clicks and Leads Academy, my own training course and mentoring environment, it's actually £1.58 a day, which is unreal when you think about it. You pay monthly, but you can also get a 30% discount or a 10% discount for paying up front. Now, why have I priced it there? Because I think that it's a really good value at that price, really, really good value. I think that you'll make your money back very quickly if you've got a product or a service to sell. But I want to make it affordable for people who are just getting started in business or who've just come out of the corporate world and who are starting their business, because people like that are very leery about spending any money or buying something that they think is going to cost them some money and they don't yet realise the value. So in order to get people into my environment and into a place where I can help them to market their business better online, then I have to keep the price low because they don't realise the value yet. But once they realise the value, then they often go on to work with me in other ways. So I hope this helps you to think about the difference between price versus value and also cost versus investment, because it's the same kind of conversation. If you've got any questions about anything I've covered today, I'd love to hear them, so do put them down in the comments below. And don't forget to go and check out Mike Maloney's Wealth Cycles video, because that will help you enormously. I'll put a link to that in the description below. You might need to watch it 3 or 4 times like I did, but it will give you a really good understanding of how the rich keep getting richer. Everybody else isn't taught how to do that. I'll see you tomorrow.